Hello and welcome. This is the next episode of Photography Gamer. Today I'm going to be looking at Detroit Become Human. At the moment on Metacritic it's kind of around a 7 or an 8. Details on the screen right now. Detroit Become Human, it's a game developed by Quantic Dreams, and it's a David Cage written story. So there's been a large kind of unemployment surge in humans because all of their jobs have been taken by androids. So there is this underswell of resentment towards these machines as they kind of have taken all of the livelihoods of most regular people. They work in shops, they work in coffee shops, even people have started having them as their partners in romantic terms. So they're really kind of taking over society, and the game focuses around 3 characters, Kara, Connor and Marcus, and it's about their journeys from the beginning to the end and how you shape their stories and how you and they're all androids obviously, so it's kind of an interesting twist on the tale of managing a story, but from the point of being a machine who is maybe starting to feel real emotions. So it's kind of, it's futuristic. It's about what the future might be like if we overindulge with technology. In terms of, like I said about the developer, their games, they're not like computer games, what you would consider a normal game. It's more like an interactive movie. It's a movie or a TV season. Like the game is about 12 to 16 hours long, I would say, and you will complete it. It's not a game you can't complete. You just keep playing and you keep playing and you make decisions and things happen, and that's, so it's not difficult. It's really just an experience. It's a game where you will play it, make a choice that will affect the next set piece, the next segment of the story, and just continue to the end. The story has a very wide branching kind of plot twists. The things can go in any direction depending on how you want to shape it. So it's more like an interactive movie than a game, but it is a game you can buy, and it's definitely an interesting type of experience. So the story focuses around 3 characters. You have Connor, he works for the company that creates the androids, and he's sent to the police department to investigate with a human cop, because there's been the main plot of the story starts with a lot of these androids are becoming violent and committing crimes and murdering humans, so they want to kind of cover it up. So he goes to work with this real life human cop who's like a bit of a cliche, kind of like drunk, burnt out disaster of a human. That's probably the most interesting plot line. And then you have Kara, who's like a home help. She kind of goes and cooks and cleans and looks after a child for this quite abusive and nasty piece of work who's her father, and that's very interesting because you have to deal with domestic violence issues. The third one is Marcus, who is like a care assistant for a rich artist who's a sort of disabled painter in a wheelchair, and you just kind of help him with his daily life. But that's how the stories start, but obviously the more decisions you make, things will change quite drastically. So they're all different stories, and at some point they will all interject and become intertwined, but the decisions you make in one story will affect the other. So it's an interesting narrative, and it's interesting playing as 3 different characters in the same world, knowing that everything is all connected. So it's quite a cool story, and it's very realistic, and it deals with, not just the kind of minutiae of day to day for the androids and the humans, but it also deals with the overview, the political situation. You have ratings that go up and down, public opinion, and you even have press conferences at some point with the President of the United States. That's very interesting. You can kind of shape that with your choices as well. So it's really for a bit of the megalomaniac in you, if you like controlling everything and seeing where it goes, this is definitely a game you might find interesting. The game is set in Detroit. It's not an open world game. It's very linear. It's in terms of the structure. You have a level, which is an area, you go to it and you have things to do. You can do them any way you choose, and then when you finish that area, you leave that area and never go back, really. So it's very much small pockets of linear space where you can have open decisions to choose how you want to progress through it. It's a very linear experience with lots of choices built in. So the game world's linear, the story is open in that respect. And it's a very interesting kind of version of the future without going too OTT or over the top in terms of making it really crazy. It feels realistic. And as I said, the gameplay, it's it's not like a conventional game. There's a lot of quick time events, a lot of quick button presses in action scenes. You have to be very fast to press the right combinations, otherwise you won't be able to achieve something. There's a lot of dialogue choices, how you interact with people. So it's really just like lots of multiple choices and then some quick button presses. But it is what it is. This is what the game is. And you just kind of go along with it. And it's very interesting. And, you know, it would be nice maybe to have a little bit more control over the characters and do a little bit more. The development of the story, yeah, it progresses. I said this isn't really like a normal game. It isn't. It's kind of like, do you know what it feels like? It feels like a very, very elaborate and complex personality test, because everything you do in this game has some kind of connotations to the other characters. So it deals with empathy, it deals with emotion, it deals with anger, it deals with revenge, how you process those things and what you're going to do. And, you know, every section is a little bit different, you know, whether you're dealing with like domestic violence, or you're dealing with caring for an elderly person, or you're dealing with starting a revolution, or you're dealing with... One of my favourite things to do in the game is the crime scenes. When you're playing as Connor and you're with the detective, you get called to all of the murders. And when you go to the murder scenes, they're very well done. Feels like you're in Seven. You know, you go in, you review the clues, and you try and reenact the situation based on finding the clues, and that's really interesting the way they've done that. That was some of the most enjoyable, because you feel like a proper detective, even though it's, you know, a computer game. It gives you that sense that you're actually investigating something and trying to figure it out. There's even an interrogation at one point, which is very, very well done, I have to say. As well done as the interrogation in LA Noire. Maybe not as good, but very good indeed. There are levels where you have to avoid people, you have to kind of dodge security or guards. Again, it's all done with quick time events, it's all done with button combinations. It feels like you're just observing the proceedings and you're just guiding it. It may not be for everybody. If you like to be more hands-on, probably not the game for you, I'd say. But the overall feel of the gameplay, it's not a stressful game to play. It's like the most super relaxed game you can play, because even if you die, it doesn't really matter, because you're just kind of like the puppet master and you're just making choices, really. It's like if you were sitting down watching Game of Thrones and you're watching 6 or 7 episodes in an evening. It's kind of like that. Yeah, an interactive movie or an interactive TV show. At its core. Game modes, there's only really like the main story. You have like menus with extras, and the menus are also something worth mentioning, because they've included a female android in the menu screen who is just like full screen looking right at you, and she says things, she talks to you, she interacts with you, she asks you questions. That's very clever. It's a very clever thing, because it kind of keeps you engaged, it makes it very personable, and you kind of grow to kind of have a fondness for that character. It's just a different play on a menu, you know, but it works because it makes it feel interesting, you know. Graphics. The graphics on this game are fantastic. I have to say, the motion capture on this game is some of the best that I've seen. There are many scenes that you're watching, interacting with, and you just think, this really does look very, very close to being real. The game environments look good on the surface, but there are some issues. I think there's no reflections in windows, I noticed. Also, I looked up at the sky, I think in the first open level where it's like a park. The sky looked awful. It looked like it had just been like a JPEG image pasted on. Really didn't look good. Barring a couple of things like that, the game really looks smooth. The character animations are good. The environmental elements are good. Lighting is fantastic. There's not dynamic weather, but the weather effects look good. The rain and the sound of the rain really kind of just feels real. I know it's a little thing, but it helps immerse. There isn't a camera mode, so you can't take pictures in respect of pausing gameplay, moving the camera around, but it's a very cinematic looking game anyway, so you can just kind of do screenshots while you're playing and it will look like a photo mode. So if you like taking pictures, maybe it's not fully functional in that respect, but there's still a lot of beautiful things to look at, and the presentation is very, very slick. So the sound of the game is very good. Like the ambient sounds are fantastic. Sound effects, walking around, weather, ambience, conversations, background noise, everything feels really nice, really smooth, really adds to it. Like very, very well done. Music, some of the music I found a little bit cheesy. It felt a little bit like, I don't want to like insult the composer, but there was a couple of tracks where it felt like they've just gone on a royalty-free website and spent $10 and bought the cheapest option, like for action scene A. There was only 1 or 2 occasions. The vast majority of the music was really nice. really tactile, really suiting the tempo of what was going on. And it's almost like I didn't really notice a lot of the music, which is a good thing because it kind of just fitted perfectly with it. Yeah, the ambience, like the ambient rain effects, like if you're in a car and you hear the rain on the window, it really sounds realistic, and you can just kind of lose yourself in those little moments. But the main audio is the voice acting. There's a lot of very good actors in this, and the voice acting I can't fault at all. It's really high level, fantastically done. All the actors have done a really good job. The script is good. Yeah, it's just really nice audio across the board, barring a few little pieces of music that I just thought were a bit cheese fest. But yeah, the voice acting stands out with the motion capture as well. It is just like watching a high level TV show or a high level movie. The good things, you've got freedom of choice, so you choose the path for each character. The motion capture and the graphics look great. The sound's great. It feels like you're having a real experience, and it feels like you're making real decisions that are affecting real people, which is rare in games. You know, often you have choices and you don't really care, but characters are so well done that when you choose to do something, you do feel a sense of empathy if it's a bad choice you've made and you regret it and you try and rectify it later. So the pros are definitely, it's a great experience, it looks good, and it's a real unique kind of game. There's not many games like this. There's a few, like the Telltale games, so it's unique in that respect. Bad points, it's fairly short. You know, you will complete it in 3 or 4 days if you play it fairly regularly, and it's about 10 to 12 hours, I'd say, maybe a little bit more. So it's quite short, but it's been out a little while, so you can probably pick this up for about $10 or euros or pounds, so you're getting more than value for money for that kind of price. Other down points, it's difficult. It's one of the stories, Marcus's story, like his plot line, barring maybe 2 levels that were particularly amazing, most of his story I found quite uninspiring. I don't think it was the actor's fault, I just think it was the scripting, and it was his story is portrayed as this real epic uprising of kind of the machines being this intelligent, emotional new humans, but that whole plot line really fails. It just doesn't feel, it just felt like killing time in between Connor and Kara's stories, which are by far the most interesting by a long distance. So that's a negative. Few graphical issues, but it's hard to say what's bad because it's not like a normal game. So yeah, maybe one of the storylines wasn't. I'd say that brought it down a little bit for me. So the verdict. Now, when I was first playing this game, I was going to give it a 9 out of 10. But after playing the whole game and experiencing the entirety of the story, my opinion changed because of it's 3 stories. 2 of the stories are great, 1 of the stories is subpar, so it kind of brought the score down, but I don't want to be too harsh. I mean, what do I think about the game? I think it's a really interesting experience. I think it's an experience you will remember and come back to and play again because of the branching storylines. I think you will admire the acting and the sound, the graphics. It's interesting to have control over the plot of a game in this way. You can kind of shape where it goes. That's enjoyable. It can be tedious. Some levels can be tedious and you feel like I'm not that bothered. Overall, it's a short experience, but it's an enjoyable experience. It's a little short. It's lacking maybe the 3rd storyline that really punches home and makes it an absolute classic. Like, I was going to give it a 9 until Marcus's story evolved, and it just felt a bit wishy-washy, you know? It just didn't feel right. So if it was Kara and Connor only, I would give this 9 out of 10, but I can't do that. I would give it, even though that 3rd storyline isn't great, I would give this an 8 out of 10. It was almost a 7.5 because Marcus's story really disappointed me. But Connor and Kara's story is so good that it just brought it back up to an 8. And in summary, I'd say it's a really interesting experience. It's a game, I think everybody should play this game, but it's not going to be for everybody because it's quite hands-off. You don't have a lot of control over a lot of things in terms of the kind of physicality of the game. Yeah, I'd pick it up for $10. You can't go wrong, really. So yeah, that was my review. Happy to hear your thoughts in the comments. Did you like it? Anything you'd like to say, put in the comments. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed it and you want to support the channel. That would be awesome. Yeah, So this is Photography Gamer signing off. Thank you for watching. See you next time, guys. Au revoir.